I think in the future, learning will be more open and more accessible and more varied, so that more people are able to learn in different ways and for different purposes across the lifespan, so that learning will be life-wide and lifelong. We might argue that learning has always been available, but often it was available in fairly narrow forms and to perhaps only a small section of the population worldwide. Learning will be more accessible, more open and more available freely to everyone at any time and for any reason.
There will be big changes in learning that will come down the line, and some of that is around the structures that we have in terms of a degree, looking at micro-credentials, just-in-time training, and the way that education is getting, I suppose, packaged into smaller kind of samples.
The future of learning is online and digital, because we need to follow and adapt to and be proactive with the UNESCO and United Nations development goals, especially in education, number 4, but also that the SDG 4 have influences and impact on all the other SDGs. And the only way forward is online to reach the education for all.
So the future of learning is likely to be much more flexible, more blended, more hybrid across the continuum of formal and informal learning. I think in terms of the process and who is involved in the learning process, I think we're going to see many more stakeholders involved. So it will be in higher education, academics working with learning designers and other stakeholders to make learning more engaging, and especially as it goes more online.
Outside of higher education and of other formal education, we're going to see online learning and online pedagogies coming into play within industry. Again, we can see that with some of the big industry players like IBM, Amazon. They're investing in education for their staff and their employees, and I think we're going to see more organizations utilizing online learning. The current model is often that people are spending a number of days attending workshops. That disrupts their whole work process by making certainly the theoretical elements available online that staff can do in their own time, and then perhaps coming for shorter workshops where they actually participate in activities that reinforce that theory. We're going to see those kind of changes. So it was just-in-time training for industry, and industry requirements will become a much bigger user of online education.
So away from higher education, online learning gives many more organisations such as NGOs and businesses the opportunity to upskill their employees or their target audiences. And so I think that there's potential for collaboration between universities and other organisations. So perhaps it's not so much that online learning will take away students from higher education, but that there will be opportunities for more authentic collaborations and curriculum development going forward.
Outside of the higher education context, online learning can be useful to people across their lifespan, from childhood right through to older adults post-retirement, for any purpose, whether that be employment related, upskilling, credentialing, retraining, but also for reasons that are personal and spiritual and to do with hobbies and self-actualization in the widest possible form. Online learning can cater for any learning, for any person, for any reason.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining FutureLearn's Festival of Learning, Educating the Educators panel session. I am Matt Jenner, Head of Learning at FutureLearn, and I'm the chair of this session. So first of all, I want to thank you for joining, and I can see already, I've got another laptop next to me, and I can see so many of you already engaging in the event tab, chatting away, getting to know each other, talking about the temperature. But first of all, before we jump to what you're saying, I just want to introduce the panel who are joining me for this session today. So I'm really delighted to welcome such a brilliant panel to this session. and I'll take great pleasure in introducing each of them to you. First of all is Diana Laurillard, who is Professor of Learning with Digital Technologies at the University College London Knowledge Lab, and also FutureLearn's academic advisor. Diana was formerly the Pro Vice Chancellor for Learning Technologies at the Open University from 1995 to 2002. And Diana's most recent book is Teaching as a Design Science, which has hugely influenced FutureLearn's social learning pedagogy and our approach to learning design. Hannah Tyman is Head of Online Learning and Community at the Chartered College of Teaching and is an experienced leader of teaching, learning, development, and digital technologies, and loves to be challenged on how they think and do all things to do with education. That's her words. Hannah has been the Head of Online Learning and Community for 2.5 years, and before that was the Learning Improvement and Development Manager at the Sheffield College, leading on learning and development across the organisation. Professor Mark Brown is Director of the National Institute for Digital Learning at Dublin City University. Before taking up this position, Mark was Director of both the National Centre for Teaching and Learning and the Distance Education and Learning Futures Alliance at Massey University, New Zealand. Simon Rofe is Reader in Diplomatic and International Studies at the Centre for International Studies and Diplomacy at the School of African and Oriental Studies, University of London. Alongside his research, alongside Dr. Simon Rofe's research in diplomacy and global history, Simon has focused upon the US Embassy in London and the diplomacy of sport. Simon has a strong interest in pedagogic matters, particularly related to online learning and development of tutors. Please join me in making them all feel very welcome to this panel session today. Also, all 4 panel members were contributors to the How to Teach Online FutureLearn Coronavirus Response course and active mentors in the discussion that took place within that course. Before we go to panel questions, I just want to quickly take a look at that course and what our learners thought. Then we'll jump to questions for the panel. And I'd strongly encourage you in the chat in Hopin to ask questions for the panel too, and we'll answer as many of them as we can. How to Teach Online, Providing Continuity for Students, was one of FutureLearn's responses to the coronavirus pandemic back in March. We felt an immediate need was to understand what was happening in schools, colleges, universities, and all other teaching and learning institutions across the world and how we could help out. And we felt one of the best things we could do was offer a free and open course on the topic that we knew best, teaching online. And it was the most obvious thing that we could do to help. We had the idea on a Friday. We opened up a course for enrollment the following Tuesday, and the course was open for learning on the next Monday. So in 10 days, we went from we have an idea to learning, active learning taking place. Considering that no one else had any time to prepare anything, why should we? As part of our learning design phase, our colleague Finola Lang rushed out across the FutureLearn partnership and asked who could help us prepare content or become a mentor in the course that we were planning to run. And 4 of the 27 contributors who helped out in that course are the panel that join us today. The goal of the course was to create a community of practice, to help teachers gain the skills and confidence that they needed for online teaching. But also, we wanted to remind them that this was an emergency response to an abnormal situation, and what they do will not be perfect, and that's okay. So I'm especially delighted today to share that we've also managed to win the EdTech Breakthrough Award as the winner of the overall e-learning solution of the year for the How to Teach Online course. And on behalf of the learning team and everyone involved at FutureLearn, I'm very proud of this achievement and what it means for the course and what it means for everyone who contributed. And just lastly, I want to share some of the details about the course in numbers for those that really love data. Over 2 runs, just in the last few months, we managed to attract 70,000 enrollments from learners all across the world who have made over 170,000 comments across the courses, all sharing experience, fear, excitement, ideas, solutions, problem, links, everything that you could imagine teachers wanting to share in the comments of the courses. The learners completed 700,000 steps between them and viewed over 1 million steps of course content, all in a time of emergency remote teaching. And I think it's remarkable and a sign of what teachers are prepared to go through that 19% of them actually completed the course, which means not only did they learn what they needed to know to teach online, they were also all completing professional development and achieving certificates of achievement at the same time, while also trying to cater for the students and the needs they had identified. And I just want to share a bit of feedback from learners who have taken this course. Maria found the course made them more relaxed and more confident, and it gave them the tools that they needed in order to teach online better. Raluca highlighted how the course focused on not just the practical aspects, but also the well-being of everyone involved, and that was something that we were very keen to focus on, especially given the situation. And lastly, Mary learned a lot about teaching online from the mentors and the learners in the comments. And those mentors are the panel members today, and I've prepared a few questions to ask them about teaching online, coronavirus, and what education will look like in a post-COVID-19 world. So, I'll get going with the first panel question. What would you recommend to an early career teacher? And I want to start by asking Hannah.
Hi everyone, and thank you for that question. I think first of all, if you're an early career teacher watching this and listening to the response, welcome to the profession of teaching. You've chosen a fantastic profession to be part of. I would argue, and I'm sure many of the panel members would, possibly the best profession that you could have chosen. Being part of education is fantastic. I think at the moment there are certainly some challenges if you're entering the profession for the first time. It looks and feels very different at the moment from what you will be used to in the future. So I think that's the first thing to bear in mind. But also, I think at the moment there are some fantastic opportunities for your own development currently that have been provided by the current context. So if you're a newly qualified teacher entering the classroom for the first time and you are joining a school, you may find that your school has put online CPD together. So professional development that you can take part in. So do try to join those sessions if you can. Ask the question, go join. It will give you an opportunity to meet the colleagues that you're going to be working with, even if it is online. And you'll also get a sense of kind of what the school are working towards, what their key priorities are, and what kind of development that you might want to engage with over the next few weeks and months. I think there are other fantastic opportunities to kind of develop your subject expertise as well. So things like Oaken National Academy have online lessons for kind of primary and secondary pupils in schools. And if you check out their lessons and go log in, you could actually watch how teachers are teaching. So set yourself some goals. What do you want to take note of? Do you want to look at how they explain something? Do you want to look at how they assess learning? So have a think about the goals that you want to try and achieve with your development. Tune into those lessons, see how somebody else is teaching, make some notes, and just absorb as much as possible, because I just think there are really great opportunities for that at the moment that you may not get in a normal school year. I think there are other development opportunities available to you. If you join the Twitter community, certainly in the UK, they're really active at the moment. They're arranging all kinds of conferences for early career teachers, all kinds of online research banks and video banks. We've got one at the Chartered College of Teaching called the Early Career Hub, and if you're a student teacher, you can access it for free. And so I think there are a lot of opportunities provided by the current context, as well as all of the challenges, for you to start feeling like you're part of the profession and sort of gain some early development avenues at this point.
Excellent. Professional development, always a really key thing for people to consider, even those that maybe feel less new to the teaching career pathway. Maybe given technology often prompts you to think about your career development, and coronavirus especially has been a sort of a wild reminder that we all need to be thinking about how we teach and how we do things and being adaptable when the situation changes. Thanks, Hannah. I just want to see if Diana also has a response to the question of recommendations to an early career teacher.
Well, that was a great list from Hannah, and I have just one thing actually to add to that, which is what I would say to every teacher at the moment, which is to take an online course in something you actually want to learn about. And this is because it's so different from anything you've ever experienced. When you're an early career teacher, you have that terribly sort of uncertain, unsettled feeling. But at least you know what teaching means, and you've been through it, many years of your own life. But with online teaching, everybody is now in the same position as that early career teacher, of that anxiety, that uncertainty, that feeling of being unsettled. And you've got to have some experiential instincts to draw on as a teacher. And if you've experienced trying to learn in an online course. And quite honestly, there's nothing I could recommend higher than How to Teach Online, the course that Matt was just showing us. And that will begin to give you a sense of, I know what people need here, just from your very own experience. So there's nothing I could recommend higher than doing that. Even if you're not completed, fine. That course is running continuously, so go and take a course.
Yeah, I completely agree. We, whenever we at FutureLearn would have a new partner or a new course team developing a course, the first thing we say is please go and take a FutureLearn course. Even if you've not taken anything else in that we've been saying today, if you go and take a FutureLearn course, you'll experience and you can borrow and you can steal ideas and you can learn from other people's work and mistakes before you go and jump in and maybe make your own. So it's very solid advice for any teacher in that scenario. Thank you. So my next question is thinking about how we can develop authentic connection with online students. And often this was reverberated across the Teaching Online course, and many learners were commenting because they themselves were teachers and feeling like they couldn't develop the same authentic connection that they might have in the classroom, where you can see faces, you can see hands, you can see emotion and expressions that you can ride off and you can adapt yourself because you know that someone might look like they need to be a bit more awake, or they're too awake and you need to try and focus on someone else. So first of all, I want to ask Simon this question, and then I'll go to Mark.
Thanks very much, Matt. I think it's a really important connection to think about in the online space. Let's then draw on my experience here and think about some of the alternative ways of building out those connections, making clear to students that they are part of the process of learning, that you're in the same boat they are, that you can have that same experience, making sure that you have a clear sense of their dislocation, their isolation, but drawing in through certain techniques, small value items, perhaps that might not reflect a huge amount on the subject matter, but are able to bring students together to provide a shared community of practice. In this sense, building out an online learning community, as you would do within a classroom, making sure that students have those points of connection with each other, as well as with the teacher and the tutor. I think in this sense, you can actually pick up on some of the things that get missed within the physical classroom. Some of the points of connection that within a 40-minute space, you don't have the chance to explore. Taking away that immediacy actually gives chance for students to reflect and think about the opportunities to share that experience, to pick up on some of that nuance, to recognize some of the perhaps the quieter students in the classroom. Well, actually, within an online environment, everyone in some senses is equally quiet, and therefore pulling out those points can make a real difference. I think it's important to recognize that as you go through an online learning experience, that you've been in that experience too. Thanks,
so
Matt.
would you say, Simon, that often the replication of face-to-face pedagogies can be a sort of early stage, not mistake, but something that's easy to do? You think about what you do in a classroom and you try to deliver the same ideas or approaches online. How do you feel about the sort of differences between classroom or physical pedagogies versus those for online environments?
I think it's a good question. It is a temptation, certainly, and in the current environment, we're certainly mindful of the quick fix and the pivot to getting online. But one of the things that I very much appreciated about the online course which we're talking about here was that we weren't constrained by an existing campus or physical course that we were then translating. I think it's important to recognize the qualities of translation, therefore. What are the key things, going back to the sort of first principles of your understanding of education, the pedagogy, what makes a difference to your understanding of the subject matter? How are you able to shape the student experience, which isn't confined by a timetable or four walls or someone waiting to come into the room, the noise from next door, from the street? Actually, you're able to shape those connections in a way that really challenges perhaps what the fundamentals of some of those classroom experiences are. And it's not about one being, as it were, better than the other, but under the current circumstances, there are only certain options are available. And therefore, we need to think about the ways that we construct that space, that learning space for students in a digital world, as well as we would do in a physical world.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks very much. I want to pose the same original question to Mark about developing authentic connection with online students.
Yes, well, I think the first thing you need to do is design for connection, be intentional about what you set out to do. In fact, I think even that word connection takes even a more powerful meaning if you turn it into a verb of being connected, being the connected learner. And in order to help create a community of connected learners, you have to be connected yourself as the teacher, as the educator. But similarly, you have to be yourself. You have to be a real person. It's very hard to build connections with people if you're not relational. You have to be honest with them about who you are. Cultivate and craft your own teacher presence. I think you have to really think carefully, and this might differ according to what type of students, what level, but carefully about your persona as a teacher. Who do you want to be? Are you wanting to be, I'll use a metaphor here, or you want to create the sort of view that you're teaching in a department store and the shop window looks really good? Or is it a small boutique fashion shop that you're trying to be the person that's selling perhaps behind the counter? Or you want to be someone who's really authentic in an op shop, selling things that have a history to them and have a whole lot of history that comes with what you're actually passing on and sharing in terms of the curriculum. Think so very carefully about your philosophy that you bring. Show empathy, be relational. At the end, you have to make learning really real.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think a key word, authenticity, comes out in so many different areas of online. And, you know, you're mentioning connection versus connected. And I sort of have this picture of wires tangling around us, thinking about that connected is these sort of nodes. You see, if you see a sort of PowerPoint slide with lots of nodes jumping back and forth, and that's what we tend to symbolize as connected. But actually connected is more that you and I are talking, we're having a conversation, we feel like we're in the same space, and we feel like we're real people having a real experience together. And I suspect if there's a lack of authentication, of authenticity, that connection immediately starts breaking down, maybe even a neurological connection where social beings don't feel like they're a part of a social experience anymore. So I suspect it's quite a human experience in order to try and make this connection with our students. One of the things that came out in the How to Teach Online course was particularly for younger audiences. And obviously all children effectively that were asked to not go to school were being taught at home. And where possible, they were being taught by a parent or a carer, but potentially they were having to also look after themselves quite a lot because the parent or carer might have also been at work or working remotely. So I wondered if I could slightly rephrase this question to Diana or Hannah, if you want to pick it up. How might you have an authentic connection with younger students?
Hannah, are you go?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I would actually echo a lot of what's already been said in terms of bringing your authentic self to that room. So letting your pupils see a little bit of you as the teacher. I think as educators, we can provide that safe, consistent environment for pupils. And so I think that authenticity and that sort of bringing your true self is very important there. I think picking up on a few examples that some of the educators shared on the How to Teach Online course, a lot of them were talking about examples that they had used in order to create that connection. A few things, for instance, we're kind of asking pupils to bring along an object from their home and explain what it meant to them. Other examples involved kind of sharing something that they'd produced at home. So using tools like Padlet or Flipgrid, which kind of make that learning really visible, inviting pupils and their parents to share something that they'd been learning at home and sort of making that visible so that you create that sense of community as a whole school or as a whole class, rather than just solely relying on you and those pupils.
Yeah, I just that made me reflect on something I remember from the How to Teach Online MOOC. And there were so many wonderful comments from teachers in there, which enabled us all to learn from each other. And there was one I remember about that, which was that there were some children in the class who found it quite difficult to engage online, who wouldn't speak. And so the teacher took a sort of lunchtime session with those children who were finding that kind of difficulty and a few others, and just a small group, and just taking a very slow, gentle approach to easy conversations with them about whatever they happen to want to talk about. So they just get into the the rhythm and this strange context of speaking to a screen, you know, with a familiar teacher behind them. But I mean, this is actually not just true for young children, but many people find there's such a strange context that it's difficult for them to perform the way they would in face-to-face. Equally, of course, when you go online, you find that there are many people who are much more comfortable in that position, for whom actually speaking in class in front of everybody is a tremendous event. But you can take your time maybe to make an asynchronous comment in a discussion group or something like that. So I think being aware of the many different ways in which we make authentic connections as human beings, and that this context is importantly different, and we have to explore some of those ways. So I thought it was a great idea from that teacher.
Yeah, great. Thank you both for extra contributions to that question. And again, community was a word that came out because in a way, in a classroom, you have a sense of community. You might also have a sense of hierarchy or structure or the roles that tend to play out with the louder and the quieter voices. But I think if I can draw on the word community, because often it's a sense that you're in a cohort, you're doing something together, that it leads me quite nicely onto my next question, which is, and I'm happy for any member of the panel to answer this, I'm hoping to get an opinion from all of you, around what does learning together mean for you? I'm happy, whoever wants to go first.
I'm very happy with this question, Matt, because I think it's a really important one, because I think we have had to become a learning organization. None of us, you know, this is a very strange world and it's new to everybody, to whole universities, to whole schools, to the community around them as well. And I mean, it brings me back to the book that you quoted, where I called it Teaching as a Design Science, because teaching is a design science. We're constantly learning from our students. We're learning what they like. We're learning what they find difficult. We're learning from their contributions, their questions, and so on. And that all feeds into the way in which we operate, and we change the way in which we teach. Even more so now, we have to be learning about how to teach. And we have to share some of that. Now, in a university context, that should be easy, because as scholars and scientists, that's what we do. You know, we create community knowledge about our field. We learn from others, we experiment ourselves, and then we share, publish, share our ideas with other people, and then so the knowledge builds. Now we've got to do that with teaching more than ever before. I think we should have done it, but we can do that. And through these kinds of online courses, professional development for teachers, this is not just a massive open online course. This is a massive open online collaboration. And we should think of it that way, I think. We are a learning community. The whole teaching community is learning from each other. And we should quite explicitly see it that way. And also professional services, one should say. I mean, their lives are going to change too, but especially for the teaching profession.
Absolutely, yeah. The sort of the heroes in the back that help make everything happen, they definitely need the recognition.
Yeah,
I think Mark was going to jump in, unless I was mistaken.
Well, you asked what it means for me, and so I'm going to answer this at two levels. One is a little bit up in the air and a theoretical, but it is very dear to me, because learning together as a term actually has its roots in what's often referred to as the UNESCO Pillars of Learning. 50, 60, 70 years ago, I think I'm right in saying that UNESCO came up with the pillars of learning being learning to know, learning to live together is the fourth pillar, and learning to live together was seen as the most important pillar, because ultimately, to solve the problems that we face as humanity, we have to work together. So that's the kind of big picture macro level, learning to do, learning to know, learning to live together being the most important pillar, they said. But at a more practical level, well, I guess we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. That's a little bit of a cliche, but as Diana was saying, no teacher or learner is an island. And maybe we've been guilty in the past of the physical environment, of shutting the classroom door and being protective of that. It's a lot harder to do that in an online environment. It's much easier to be open and invite others into it. So for me, learning together is at the core of what it means to learn. We understand that learning is social. We understand that learning occurs in a network, and we want to embrace those networks. And I think perhaps one last point about learning together from COVID-19, we also understand that learning is deeply emotional, and that we need to draw on those pedagogy of care and empathy, if you like, that's emerged, that maybe we lost a bit of sight of.
Yeah, so it was a real standout. I don't mean to keep going back to the teaching online course, but we asked learners at the end of each week for 3 words on how they felt. And at the end of week 1, the key word, if you just do a simple word count, we use Wordle to do this, the word cloud showed that they were challenged. And challenge was this kind of a real signal that the teachers in our course just felt really put out. It was a really difficult thing. Now, they also mentioned some positive words like excited, but challenged was the signatory thing. By the end of week 2, it turned into excited. And I think if in 1 week you can turn tens of thousands of people from challenged into excited because you've given them, dare I say, an opportunity to learn, then you're really showing the power of teaching and the power of learning coming together. And it's just, what a transformation that people felt. It was the same activity, just repeated over the weeks. And I think it echoes a lot of what you've just said. So thank you. Simon or Hannah?
Yeah, if I may, I think it's important to think here about who make up the community of learners that you're participating with. You know, in some senses, in a school environment or a university environment, that's, you know, fellow students and a tutor and a teacher. But within, you know, the learning at home, learning in a dislocated space, whatever that may look like in terms of different care arrangements as we move forward, the community of learners can entail other people as well, you know, mothers, fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers, etc., you know, brothers and sisters. What that entails me, and one of the things that, you know, I share a very small anecdote from my own learning from home with my children experience, is how they've learned together. You know, children at different age, in 8 different ages, different school years, have been able to really collaborate within a, you know, confined space over a short period of time on particular exercises. You know, the representation of VE Day in this in the UK, that was something that was a, you know, collaborative project amongst different generations of learners. Myself, my 7-year-old, and my 10-year-old, that we were working towards, you know, the school's learning outcomes. Was a really fascinating experience brought about under these, you know, strange circumstances. But it speaks to, you know, who makes up the learning community that we're part of. And, you know, in the current moment, we can draw in a whole variety of different people that within the 4 walls of a classroom at a school or a university, we haven't always had the opportunity to. So it is really exciting in that sense.
And I guess that's probably quite a unique experience for you to be able to have that much time with your children at different levels and different ages in particular, learning a similar topic together. And I guess it echoes back to Sir Ken Robinson, who's for a long time championed the idea that we tend to put learners of the same age group into the same classes, assuming that they'll all have to just go through it together because of the way the education system has to be structured for economic and other reasons. But you're quite clearly demonstrating that actually you can take one topic, you could have different abilities and ages, and who knows what kind of learning together or vicarious or collaborative learning could take place if only a bit of experimentation was allowed to take place to explore those types of approaches. So yeah, really fascinating. Hannah?
Yeah, so I always approach this from a professional development point of view, probably because of the organisation I work for and the work I've done previously. There's a phrase that exists within professional development for teachers, and I can't remember the origins of it or who said it originally, but it's this idea of reciprocal vulnerability. And I think we saw this on the How to Teach Online course really well, actually, that teachers are open to be vulnerable with one another because it builds trust. And within a learning environment, trust is really important. So you trust that the other teachers that you're there with, whilst they may not be at the same point in their journey, can recognise the journey that you're on and its challenges and its opportunities, and that you're kind of all sharing that moment together and being vulnerable together. So being open to one another about the difficulties that you're having in the classroom, and with whether that's online or face-to-face, really, that the same thing goes, but that you're able to share the things that you're grappling with one another in order to find solutions. And I think that idea is really essential in those environments.
I think reciprocal vulnerability is such a wonderful term for what I've always called the sort of safe space of learning, which is that you shouldn't be able to say something that's wrong. You shouldn't be feeling like you're doing it the wrong way or that your question is invalid, because you're all meant to be learning. There should be every opportunity to explore any angle on the concept or level of understanding. So I like that phrase, reciprocal vulnerability, because it sort of builds a space where you're encouraging people maybe to feel a bit more open or a bit more vulnerable. Maybe sort of lower the walls, as it were, so that they're more receptive to experimentation or trying new things or thinking differently about a topic. So that's a really nice way. It also makes me think about the next question, which is a lot of, particularly people who are trying to get to the next sort of stage in education, has been quite significantly disrupted because of quite traditional methods of assessment. And assessment, if you sort of close your eyes and think about what assessment might look like, you might very quickly be transported to some sort of large structure with small desks and paper and people sitting maybe a meter apart to prevent cheating, certainly not to prevent anything else from happening. But all of that got flipped around and got a bit mixed up because coronavirus stopped everybody from going anywhere. And so the question I want to ask the panel is, what should assessment look like in a post-COVID-19 world? And as the recent award winner of the e-Assessment Lifetime Achievement Award, I want to first go to Diana to ask Diana this question all about assessment.
Oh, right, caught. Thank you. Well, there's two sorts of assessment, of course, formative and summative. And the formative is not really problematic in the sense that you're not so worried about authentication of who's actually written this piece of work. And there are a number of plagiarism tools which you can make use of for student submissions and so on. So it's not so much formative assessment, and there are so many wonderful things you can do in the online world that really enrich and enhance what you can do in formative assessment. So I don't think that's especially problematic, but obviously summative assessment is, where this is about authenticating this individual as being someone who can do this, who knows about it and has the skills and so on. And so there you have to be absolutely sure. And that's why even distance learning places like the Open University has always hired gigantic halls all over the country in order to do the final exam. Because it's that person turning up with their face identity. However, there are systems for doing this online. And we have to develop those further. We have to have the education system as a whole understanding how to do that. And I think that's much more a technical issue than anything else, because all the other kinds of discussions we have about assessment are about the value of what we're assessing, about what we most want to assess, about the best ways of getting students to demonstrate what they've learned. And that's common to whether we're talking about campus-based, face-to-face, or distance learning or online. Those are sort of philosophical, pedagogical discussions. But I think the big issue for us post-COVID, as we have to deal with summative assessment, is essentially more technical than anything else.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. It's a very difficult topic and it's very emotional because grades still means a lot to every learner. Getting a high grade, a good grade, the grade you deserve is such a key part of educational outcomes, sadly.
Yeah.
But true.
There are some people who say, well, if they cheat, then they are the ones who lose. But they're not the only ones who lose. Everybody loses. All of those students have got to trust the system. So we absolutely have to take responsibility for making that a proper process of authentication.
Yeah, agreed. Would anybody else on the panel like to pick up or respond to this question?
Well, one point perhaps that I can contribute a little different from Diana, which I'm pleased you were the first that had to grapple with what assessment might look like, is I think we need to understand that assessment is inherently political. And the COVID experience has taught us that in Ireland, but I know similarly in the US and I'm sure in the UK, that the end of semester assessment has required us to rethink the purpose of assessment. In the school system, of course, in many cases, the final examinations for entry into higher education have had to be changed. And that's challenged assumptions about normative distributions that sadly still exist in our thinking. The extent with which summative assessment fits within the media and the public perceived the trust and credibility of assessment, all of that is being brought out to bear. And I'm very wary talking about assessment because all of us here are products of being successful in a system that we're probably challenging ourselves. But nonetheless, to quote David Perkins from many years ago, really, we haven't moved very far away from training memories to what should really be more about educating minds. And for me, if we're really looking for it to create more innovative, creative and imaginative learners, then we need to embrace much more creative, innovative and imaginative approaches to assessment. And that will involve more variety, more authenticity, and probably a lot more digital. And a focus perhaps more on some transversal skills that link to those attributes of creativity, innovation, and real problem solvers for the future.
Agreed. And I know, Mark, you were very instrumental in the creation of the Mahara ePortfolio platform. So I don't know if you wanted to share a quick comment on how you feel about ePortfolios and the creation of portfolio-based assessments and the place that might play, given that it's less sort of exam focused and more sort of lifelong or learning-wide way to demonstrate the journey that a learner has been on.
Well, absolutely. That's really strikes at the core of what is the purpose of assessment. And there are different purposes that both formative and summative assessment has, but this is not a terminal thing. This is about reflection on performance. Learning is life, and right through life we need to reflect and learn from our mistakes, embrace mistakes as learning opportunities, and portfolios, whether they be digital or in other forms, give us that mechanism, a platform with which to really help us understand our progressions, where we might want to go, setting goals, all the attributes that we know of good learners. So portfolios have certainly been around for some time, but I would like to see a much more holistic approach to thinking about assessment and a much more lifelong and life-wide conception.
It's not normal for the audience to be able to get into the panel like this, but I just want to highlight that Kelly says that you're spot on. So there you go. So the advantage of me being able to look at the comments as we go. So this is my final panel question, and I would appreciate if all of you would like to share a response to it, which is to think that some have said that this might be a transformational moment for education. And I wanted to know what your opinions are. Do we think that in post-coronavirus that we've actually gone for a pivotal moment, or are we just currently in a bit of a blip?
Well, it must be pivotal. It's been a fantastic opportunity for people to discover what online learning is. And that was one of the interesting things I found in the How to Teach Online comments from people, was how many people thought online learning was just live. You know, you just had to, it was all Zoom meetings or something. And there is so much more to it than that. So we really must make sure this is not just a quick sprint to get over the hump and then we all go back to normal. But digital is there forever to enhance everything that we do, to make the best possible learning experience for students, and also to think about running wholly online courses, which most universities have never really fully embraced. And it is a different way of doing things. You have to think about the way you use staff time differently. You have to think about budgeting differently. It's not straightforward to suddenly become something close to what the Open University is. At least we have a model in this country for how to do it. But if we're going to do that, it has to be strategic. And by the way, while we're doing that, we must all think in terms of our missions and what we're really trying to do as universities, and we all want to contribute to the public good, to the universal good. We work within the frame of the SDG 4, the Sustainable Development Goal for Universal Education. But we can contribute to that now, and especially if we think of online, wholly online courses, being much more inclusive of more overseas students or more students living in remote communities who could not possibly afford to come to a big city to study. But they could afford to do the kind of online learning that the Open University has always provided, but for undergraduates as well. So we have to think about what this offers us as a new way forward. And that has to be debated and understood and planned for throughout the university system. And I mean, we're including schools here as well. So I would say for schools as well, they won't be teaching wholly online, but universities could.
Yeah, definitely. I'm
I
just
think
nodding a lot. Who else? Was that Simon?
Yeah, if I may, I just to sort of echo Diana there and say the opportunity is pivotal now. This is a really important moment to recognise what education can contribute to society. You know, the challenges we face directly with COVID will be solved by people who have been through an education system that has seen them prosper and direct the scientific responses. You know, that's not in my purview, but it's clear that the dedication and the work that these people who, with a good degree of hard work are going to provide a vaccine are giving us a huge opportunity. The education system has, in varying degrees and around the world with their national variations, produced, the humanity that can address these problems. We may not be able to solve them tomorrow, but we have a huge opportunity to address the immediate problem and to think about ways we can prevent, problems such as these global challenges coming forward, be that in terms of the global health pandemic, be that in terms of environmental sustainability, be that in terms of access through all of the SDGs to development goals for 2030. Thinking here about the opportunities that education provides for really sort of a knowledge diplomacy, a transformational quality, a transnational quality that means that education is one of the key dynamics of any individual and indeed any country's position in the world. Recognizing those points of connectivity, the ability to communicate, to represent, to negotiate those fundamental core values of diplomacy allow you in this moment to make a real contribution through a post-COVID world that's something that is fundamentally better for humanity.
Absolutely. So very clearly. Thank you. Yeah. Mark or Hannah?
I think I'm often very cautious about the word transformation, particularly when it comes to digital transformation. I think often in the past it's been promised and that digital has been seen as a silver bullet, and it often hasn't been the case, particularly in school environments. And so, yeah, I'm also cautious of kind of how we perceive this time. I think, as we've referenced previously, it's worth kind of bearing in mind all the time that this time of coronavirus has been a time of crisis for many. It's been a time of grief, of loss of income and all of that kind of thing. I think this seems like a bit of a downer on everyone's response so far, but I think it's worthwhile kind of bearing in mind the sort of experience of our communities, and of our school teachers as well, that perhaps it has been an increase in workloads, an increase in stress about our pupils and how our communities are faring during this time. So I think it's worth bearing that in mind. The other side of it, I think I want to look at this sort of teaching profession more widely and how it's been seen, because I think how teachers have responded to that climate and to that sort of situation that we've all been plunged in quite quickly and had to respond to is the level of professionalism with which teachers have responded, the level of adaptability, the agility, a real keenness to change, adapt, learn. And what I hope comes out the other side of this is actually a relook at sort of the accountability system for teachers, the respect, the trust that exists within the profession, because I think teachers have shown that just what they can do for their communities and really make learning work, even when many said it would be impossible. So, yeah, I guess that's my take.
Yeah, I think many have found that it's not impossible, it's maybe quite difficult, but I imagine many have been quite surprised with the outcomes that have been realised over the last few months. And I suspect, even if it's not a huge pivotal moment for the whole of education, but there'll be some that will look back and say, why did I ever do it the way that I used to do things? And increasingly, maybe this is maybe the second resurgence of blended learning. I think it's had a couple now, but maybe blended learning will have another go at being more formalised and built into the sort of initiation structures of a new course or a new program or program and course review. hopefully across many different types of educational environments. Mark, did you want to close out?
Well, yes, I'm really heartened by what I've heard from the fellow panelists, and also the experience of the course, in that the outcome of the COVID movement and whether this is just a blip or something really pivotal, I think is in our hands. It's a cliche, but in every crisis there's an opportunity. So I think we have to have the courage of our convictions here. We have to be willing to challenge some sacred cows. We know, and we've known for a long time, that face-to-face teaching is not the gold standard of education. Many of us experienced face-to-face teaching that was hardly effective, sitting at the back of a lecture theatre. And so we have evidence that we can draw on. We just have to be a bit smart about how we draw on that evidence, both pedagogically but also politically. Because whether we're going to have a pivotal moment is going to depend to a large extent on our politicians and policymakers. I think we have to shift the language away from education now being in this change to education for the change we're looking for. What is it? What type of societies do we want post-COVID-19? And what kind of education systems and delivery channels do we want to serve that system or society, more rightly? Diana mentioned about the importance of culture. We need to align what we're doing with our institutional cultures, fully embed it, have the right mindset. But ultimately, this is both pedagogical but political work. And if we don't think we can change this, then we won't. But I firmly feel that this can be a pivotal moment, and we just have to grasp the opportunity.
Absolutely. Rising, I can't think of the right phrase, but absolutely, like something, adversity conquers, I don't know. There's a good phrase in there, but I'm afraid it's jumped out my brain. I'm going to jump to some prosperity for adversity, maybe, I'm not sure. There's been several great questions from the chat that I've managed to draw out of the ongoing discussion on Hopin. And one that's really struck me that I'm sure the panel would have an opinion on is from Ross Exton, which is that many students have benefited from the access to education online while the schools have been closed during lockdown. The question is, how can we ensure children and students from disadvantaged backgrounds without easy access to technology are not left behind? Who wants to pick that up?
Well, I'll have a go. I think the question of inclusivity in online education is an important one. We've heard of situations where, families, children don't have access to digital facilities, don't have access to a laptop, don't have access to the internet in any meaningful way. And in the UK context, that's something that I would like to see rectified very swiftly. Distributing laptops, the hardware, to families who need it, so that they can engage with that, making sure that having a broadband connection is as important as having electricity and water. In today's society, I think there are comparable services. But I would also draw, on some of the work that I've seen in other parts of the world where people don't have electricity on a regular basis, don't have access to certainly high-speed broadband, but they're still willing to go that extra mile to learn. And thinking here of communities of particularly young girls who may not have access to a mobile phone, but will wake up in the night and borrow their family phone so that they can get online to learn, to find out information, to be more attuned to their school opportunities. Because in the middle of the night, there is an opportunity to utilize that one piece of digital technology in the family, perhaps, or because actually at that point the bandwidth allows for them to watch a TED talk or dare I say engage in a FutureLearn course. These are some of the things that people will go that extra mile to learn. The human capacity to want to learn is something that we should never underestimate. And providing some of those hardware challenges, overcoming them, they're things that I'd like to think that in a 21st century modern society could certainly deliver.
Well, it reminds me of the quote that the future's already here, it's just not evenly distributed, which is rapidly becoming a sort of saying that inequality is a problem and we need to address it with devices, bandwidth, mental bandwidth, support, digital skills. There's a whole package of things that need to go alongside it, but you're absolutely right that they're key to enabling people to not have to swipe a mobile phone at 3 a.m., but to actually have proper access so that everyone's included. Yeah, couldn't agree more with that point. So potentially, here's a closing out statement from Joy, who said that e-learning has boomed during the COVID pandemic. And it's showing us that education finally needs to move away from being moving away from being school-centric to learning-centric. And I think that really highlights so many important things that we've already been discussing today, and some very important things that are just generally important across education, which is it should be about learning. There's teachers, there's environments, there's technology, there's lots of things all around it, but there's always a shared goal of learners should be learning. So I just want to thank Joy, because I think that's a really nice summary of what drives us and what motivates us, why we're all here, is learning. So unless if the panel have any final closing comments on that statement.
Yeah, that's a good one to end on, Matt. Thank you.
Absolutely. It is just learning. The learning's the important bit, not the prefix.
Well, learning is life.
There you go. I thought there'd be some sound bites in there. So first of all, thank you very much to the panel, to Diana, Hannah, Mark and Simon. It's a real pleasure to have you sharing a space with myself on the FutureLearn Festival of Learning. So thank you very, very much. I can't really clap because I imagine it would sound horrific, but I would be praising you and clapping you on a stage if that such a thing were to exist. I look forward to seeing you all really soon, either digitally or otherwise. And thanks again so much for the time that you've given to this session. And also to everybody on Hopin who's been there's been a really great, engaging discussion. I've been watching different screens and enjoying everything going on in there as well. So to everybody who's attended or watching this later on, thank you very much for your time, attention. And I guess let's just go and all focus on learners learning and learning for life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Imagine a world where the highest quality learning is open to all, regardless of status, location, or circumstances. That's what we're building. We're FutureLearn. Our purpose is to transform access to education. We're jointly owned by the Open University and the Seek Group, world leaders in distance education and employment businesses. We've reached over 10 million learners to date. We're a multi-award winning team with the skills, passion, and plan to deliver the best online learning experience. We offer a huge selection of courses from over 175 leading universities and organizational partners all over the world. We make learning simple, one step at a time on mobile, tablet, and desktop, so you can fit your learning around your life. And we underpin it all with social learning. What's social learning? Put simply, it's harnessing the power of the community. We learn best when we share and debate ideas with fellow learners, understanding different experiences and perspectives, filling the gaps in our own knowledge. It adds an entirely new dimension and creates a richer learning experience. We make all this happen with flexible short courses, programs, micro-credentials, and degrees. Each course is created by a leading university or organisation and made up of bite-sized lessons. You can usually start learning for free. Short course upgrades offer access to all course materials and the chance to earn a certificate. Our unlimited offer allows you to pay once a year to upgrade on as many courses as you like. Paid courses offer a more focused, professionally orientated learning community. Sponsored courses help organisations widen participation in higher education or meet responsibility goals. Our programs enable you to learn in depth with groups of courses that help you explore different aspects of a topic. Our micro-credentials allow you to upskill or reskill with short stackable courses that award academic credit or recognition of prior learning. We offer a growing range of accredited undergraduate and postgraduate degrees. Degrees are arranged as sets of courses which you can take flexibly, depending on how much time you want to commit each term. We also support our academic partners, public bodies, and various organisations with a range of extra services. These include course creation, quick authoring for faster course development and improved learning design, plus end-to-end support from your own dedicated team. Course analytics to better understand your learner demographics and what they think of your courses. Learner management. Guide cohorts with powerful course facilitation tools. Track and support individual learners. Income generation. A revenue share of paid courses and upgrades, as well as tools to attract learners to further study with your organisation. Employers can also use FutureLearn in the workplace to upskill or reskill employees. FutureLearn, transforming access to education.